Hey guys, Pregame show. Josh Lloyd here. Got 6 games on. We got news on the Tyrese Halliburton injury. We got news on a Jaylen Brown injury, seemingly out of nowhere. Gordon Hayward back in the next week or so. No shit. After they kept ruling him doubtful. I think that's probably the big injury updates that we got. Chris Paul out again tomorrow along with Shamet, but Ayton is questionable. Giannis is out today. We'll go through all the injuries in a second. For today's games, the ins and the outs. Welcome everyone. Good to see you guys here. Why are people adding Shake Milton? Multiple people have asked me about Shake Milton. It's because the Sixers play 3 games in the next 4 nights, and I think people are expecting Maxey or Harden to rest. Otherwise, there's no reason. He's like a 16-minute a night player. The 3 games in 4 nights can be marginally interesting, but I wouldn't get too excited about Shake Milton. I guess people are anticipating rests of Embiid. I don't know. I'm just going to look at the Sixers at the moment. Yeah, I guess maybe they're anticipating a Maxey rest in one of them. Maybe a Harden rest. They both rested the last back-to-back. I'm not convinced they do, though. And Milton's played good minutes. 23, 25, 24, the last 3 games. All of those games were double-digit margins. I don't know. I honestly, I don't see it. I don't see it. Maybe he can play that, but there was Embiid out, there was Tucker out, there was limited minutes for Melton. I don't know. I'm not getting it. I wouldn't add him. But it is an interesting question because you're right. It has been mentioned to me quite a few times. The Raptors have a 5-game week next week. They do. Yes. Is Duran a drop? No, I don't think so. Let's do a dribble game. Let's bring that across now and get cracking onto that. All right. What is the option here? All right. Who have we got? Grant Williams and Dennis Smith. Boston player that plays in Charlotte currently, or played in Dallas. Or played for the Knicks. Fournier? Did Fournier play with Smith? Does Fournier play with Williams? Oh, what is this? Grant Williams, Dennis Smith. It's not Al Horford. Is it Fournier? I don't think it is. No. So Fournier to Smith. Did Randall play with Smith? Yeah, he did. All right. So what was Gordon Hayward? Of course. Did Grant Williams play with Gordon Hayward? Didn't know that. Okay. Well, didn't remember that. More to the point. Let's go to the lineup page and see what we've got over there so far. The Sixers are starting Harden, Maxey, Harris, Tucker, Embiid. The Thunder are starting Giddey, Gilgeous-Alexander, Dort, and then both Jalen Williamses. We know Marcus Smart and Rob Williams are back, but Al Horford and Jaylen Brown are out. Joe Harris is starting in place of KD. Adebayo's back. Jarrett Allen and Isaac Okoro should be ready to go. So let's look at who is in or who is out at the moment for today's games. Thunder and Sixers, there's no real situations there, so that's good. Gordon Hayward's out for Charlotte. Boston and Brooklyn, we've got Horford and Jaylen Brown out. Smart and Williams are back. Joe Harris starting for Durant. Claxton's playing. For the Bucks and the Heat, Adebayo is in. Dedmon is out. Hero is out. Lowry is out. Caleb Martin is out. For the Bucks, Grayson Allen is out. Giannis Antetokounmpo is out. Joe Ingles is out. And Chris Middleton's out. So everyone's out. For Dallas, Finney Smith and Josh Green are out. Dwight Powell is questionable, while Patrick Beverley is out for the Lakers. And LeBron and Russ are probable. And then for the Cavs and Blazers, Jarrett Allen is probable. Ricky Rubio is questionable. Wade and Windler are out. Lillard is questionable still for the Blazers. And Nasir Little is out. And Gary Payton is probable. So that is all of that news. We'll get more stuff coming through as we go through stuff. Josh, what's your recent video about Lillard buy low? You mentioned 2 top 50 players. Someone like Wood and CJ? Yeah, I would definitely give up Wood and CJ to get Damian Lillard, yes. Would you drop Pat Williams for TJ McConnell? I think the upside in McConnell for the short term is definitely there. And the Bulls play one game next week. So yes, I would do that. Is Hayward must roster when he returns with Ubres? I don't think so. He hasn't been performing that well. So I'm not sure that I'd leave him. I don't think I'd have him as a must roster player, no. Should you drop Cam Johnson for Dan Gafford? Yeah, with the update yesterday about Cam, I wouldn't be too interested in holding him at the moment. How much longer will Chris Paul be out? I've got no idea. Jaylen Brown with his adductor injury. They said a week or two. So, yeah, 10 days, 2 weeks is what we're guessing. Best streamer for steals. All right, let's have a look. Let's have a go. Oladipo, Dennis Smith, Jalen McDaniels, Lou Dort, Gary Payton, Gabe Vincent, Javon Carter. They're probably your best streams for steals. Yo, Josh, January 28th. Ring a bell? Nope. No idea. What's January 28th? I honestly have no idea what that is. Theoretically, if Damian Lillard misses today, who benefits the most? I'm assuming Gary Payton isn't able to play large minutes. Agreed. So I think you'll see more minutes for Shaedon Sharpe. You'll see Payton play 20 or so, but it'll just be Simons and Grant who take on extra usage, and Nurkic, and more minutes going to Sharpe, I'm guessing. You can ask about Jonathan Isaac of the Orlando Magic whenever you want. I feel like I've covered him a million times over the last 3 days. I'm just not interested in adding him in 12-team leagues. Is Neesmith must roster? He's close. He's close. I wouldn't say he's must, but he's close. In a points league, would you drop Mark Williams for Nembhard or McConnell? I would, yes. I would get those guys in. And in a 16-team points league, I would grab Nembhard, no problem, over Mark Williams. I think that's a fair enough assumption. If Lillard's questionable, he'll sit one of the 3 games in 4 nights. I think that's a fair enough assumption. What happened to Langford? Looked like he was pumping for a week. He's not that good. I wouldn't have said he was pumping. He was playing okay, but they just had other options to go to, and he's not particularly great. Who benefits the most with Jaylen Brown being out? It'll be a bunch of guys. It'll be Smart, White, Grant Williams, and Malcolm Brogdon. They'll all sort of take on that extra role. You get more usage for Brogdon, more minutes for Brogdon, more usage for White, more usage for Smart. It'll just be a bunch of guys. It won't be anyone really who's outside of the top 150 who really steps up, I don't think. Maybe Grant Williams. Game of the day prediction. Not Bucks Heat. Everyone's out. Mavericks Lakers. Cavs Blazers. But if Lillard's out, that's not great. Let's go Cavs Blazers. Any idea when they'll announce Lillard's status? Normally Chauncey Billups does announce stuff earlier. So it's normally about an hour and a half before the Blazers game. But yes, that will be after games start. Who benefits the most with a lot of Bucks players out today? Probably Pat Connaughton, actually. Connaughton, Beauchamp. But I looked at Portis. Portis is the big beneficiary there. Portis, Connaughton are probably the major 2, I would say. How likely is Dame? I don't know. He's currently questionable, so we just leave it as 50-50. I don't know any specifics about that injury. Is TJ going to get a usage bump with KD out, even though Harris starting? I would imagine so, yes. Andre, I'm sorry to tell you, mate, but my birthday isn't January the 28th. So I don't know where you got that from. Who do I think will win MVP? Who do I think will win versus who I think should win it? Maybe different things. I think it should be Jokic. Best Toronto stream for next week. Well, let's have a look. I haven't looked at that yet. Let's have a look at next week. Who is... They've got a 5-game week, the Raptors, next week. Who is worth looking at? I actually don't have anyone outside of the main five projected to be top 120 players despite playing 5 games. Your best bet is going to be Boucher, then Koloko, then Achua, but I don't feel particularly good about that at all. Why do players assigned to G League while recovering from an injury still receive an injured tag? Middleton and Isaac. It feels like if they are healthy, they are playing. Yeah, I think it all comes down to the meaning of the injured tag, really. You're right. They are healthy if they're going to play. I don't think Middleton's going to play, though. He's going to practice. But Isaac played. But I just think that part of the issue that people have with complaints with this list is the term injured. Like, just make it inactive. If they just call it the inactive list or the inactive report or inactive reserve, then there's no complaint about this. Because they're in the G League. They still can't play for your team. Middleton's not actually healthy to play in a game, and I don't think he is going to play in a game. I think he's just going to go down to practice. But people get pretty annoyed that he's not actually injured, and Isaac, he's not actually injured. Yeah, but he's not available to play in an NBA game because he's doing rehab stuff. So I just think that the name of that list should just be changed to the inactive list or the inactive reserve, and then we don't have that problem. Do I consider competitive 12-team leagues as deep leagues due to active managers rapidly adding players? Probably, yeah. But you still, even though it is more active, you still only have the same amount of players rostered. So while there may be like the extra activity means they're a little bit ahead of others in terms of they're grabbing these guys who might be available in 50% of leagues, and your cutoff for guys in your league might be 30% as they're getting on them earlier, you are still rostering the same amount of people. And to grab those, those options, those quick options, it means they're dropping somebody else. And those guys then appear as available players. So what I think ends up happening there is that you get the hotter players get added in that sort of league faster with lower percentages, but then some of the guys that get dropped might have higher percentages or higher roster percentages than the usual waiver wire player. That's probably the trade-off there, I would think. Would I hang tough with Melton in shallow 9-cat leagues? If it's a 10-team league, I don't think that I would. In a 12-team, I would, yes. Do I like the old defensive era or the current shooting era more? Early 2000s I thought was pretty boring. So this era for sure. I suspect Killian Hayes' light suspension might come back to bite the league. Am I just a softie? Bite them in what way? They have always been soft on these suspensions. Killian Hayes' suspension, I thought it should have been longer. But the precedence is always that they give short suspensions. So it's not a Hayes only thing. It's always been the way it is. Why isn't Kenrich a starter? I'm not sure. I can't explain their rotations. Have I ever had someone in my league drop a healthy top 50 player by accident on purpose? Yes. Often it's on accident or by accident. Not on accident. It's a terrible phrase. And usually you just get the commissioner to reverse it. Is there any chance Duarte is a beneficiary of the Halley injury? Yeah, last time Halley was out, Duarte was out as well, as was McConnell. So all those guys are out. So I think, yes, Duarte does play more, but he's been so far out of their plans that he does get an increase. But is it enough to matter in most leagues? I don't think so. What is the best starting 5 you can make with only bench players? All right, so let's put Brogdon on there, I'd say. Let's put Jordan Poole on there. Who else do you put on there? Who's a good backup center? Marvin Bagley? I have to think about that quite a bit to get to the answer. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Do I think Jalen Williams, who is this? Because this isn't a real player. And you've got to be really specific when you're spelling out Jalen Williams. I assume you mean the Bronco. Do I think it'll be top 75? Probably not. Probably not. All right, I'm just going to go, because I've got to go answer that door. Just talk amongst yourselves for a sec. right, here we go. Let's see if there's any more news. All right, so we've got a few more lineups confirmed. Hornets, Ball, Rozier, McDaniels, Washington, Plumlee. Raptors, VanVleet, Trent, Barnes, and Anunoby, Siakam. No surprises with any of those guys. See if there's any more news. Nope. Nothing else there. Tyus Jones on the all-bench team? Yeah, probably. Do I think McConnell will start? No, I don't. I think they'll move Nembhard to point guard. But he could. I think they'll move Nembhard to point guard, and they'll start Mathurin or Jalen Smith, is my guess. Is Kyle Lowry fringe droppable in 12-team leagues? Am I less optimistic now compared to when the season started? Yes, I am less optimistic now. I don't think he's droppable, though. It is a slump. He's been good for most of the year, but at the moment, everything, like percentages are down, free throw attempt rate is down, and assist rate is down. And he's currently hurt. That's not a great combination. But I would hold, I think. How am I doing in the Locked On Fantasy Basketball? I'm sort of mid-pack, making playoffs in Category League. I think I'm playoffs in Points Leagues as well. What will Ingram's fantasy production be like when the Pelicans are fully healthy? Well, we saw that at the start of the season. We have seen this already. He's fine, like around top 50 or whatever. Around that mark. Okay. No more news. Nope. Who's the best stream for a Saturday, Sunday back-to-back? Let's have a look. I don't actually, off the top of my head, know who is playing in that back-to-back, but give me 1 second and I'll bring it up. Well, we know that the Sixers are. Let's have a look. Who do we like? Sixers and Mavericks and Blazers. So who's a good stream? Obviously Melton if he gets dropped. Drew Eubanks, Gary Payton maybe. It's not much. Dwight Powell, Reggie Bullock. Yeah, they're not great. Again, Shake Milton, but like that's way down the list. George Niang. George Niang's not a bad one. It's not great options because those three teams, Dallas, Portland, Philly, who have got the weekend back-to-back, there's not that much that sits on their benches that is supremely useful. So it's probably like Niang, Bullock, Powell. Maybe it's Milton. Maybe it's Thibault. Do I think Rubio approaches top 150? No, I don't. I think it'd be really hard for him to get there. Carter or Beauchamp tonight? Drew's not out, so that reduces Carter's impact. Although I still think there is a chance that Carter starts. He's a better option than Beauchamp, I think. When I'm talking about a player's value, are you referring to his season average or rest of season projected? I think it's way more impactful to talk about rest of season stuff. Like, how do you view the player moving forward? I think is a better way of viewing it. So that's usually what I'm talking about. Any players that can benefit significantly by being traded before deadline, it's too broad of a question and it's impossible to be able to say. Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of players, but there's no point wasting hours and hours and hours trying to find this guy who might get opportunity if he's traded to a certain situation when realistically it's not going to happen. It just isn't. Like, I could make arguments for anyone really, like in any situation. Like John Collins gets traded to Charlotte for PJ Washington. Great. Collins' value goes way up. But what's the chance of it happening? Just don't waste your time really focusing on this. Just got to be quick to react when stuff happens, or when we get like really close to trade deadline, when we start hearing real confirmed stuff, not random whispers of trades that may have happened or may have been discussed. Any Pistons worth holding through next week? Yeah, Ivy. Ivy. No, not Ivy. No. Bogdanovic, Hayes, Duran. It is only a 1-game week, but I think those guys are all pretty solid. Pretty solid as top 100 players. All right, Austin, it's a really good question. I always love answering this one. How is it Giannis is projected at 92nd on BBM? For the love of God, please, I need everyone to understand this. When we go through and project players, we don't put them in order. Giannis is projected 92nd. You're including turnovers. Please don't do that. And this is also including the impact of his negative free throw percentage, which drops him way down. If you're drafting Giannis, you understand that the free throw percentage is going to be punted. He is not the 92nd ranked player in projections. He just isn't. I know that's why rankings and values can be so misleading, and you have to understand how to be able to interpret them. And 92nd is not telling you that he is the 92nd best player at all. It's just literally the individual values of each of those categories. But again, in a head-to-head league, you have Giannis, then you are punting free throws. So the gigantic negative impact that he has in that category doesn't actually matter. So him being ranked 92nd has zero relevance. And again, we don't go in and rank players. We don't sit there and go, Giannis is 92nd. And we have him behind Josh Hart or Onyeka Okongwu or Anthony Simons. I also, again, continue to beg you, please, don't try and look at the valuation of players with turnovers on, because that's how you get to stupid situations like this. I think what you need to really pay attention to is we've got a valuation you can use called the -1 value, and that will put Giannis way up inside the top 10, because it just takes away your it takes away your worst category. So I'm just going to bring up what that looks like, what the -1 values on projections. That has Giannis at 11th. Yes, because he's seen a dip in his field goal percentage and his defensive stats have fallen away this season. So he's not as high as he was in the past, where he was at number 2 or number 3, but he is 11th still. And that's the difference, right? That is the big difference. Is you take away free throw percentage, and there we are. We hit him at number 11. It is really important to be able to understand that. Otherwise, you will get bamboozled and swindled. When will I be going over good playoff schedule, Sam? In the next week or two, I think. But I think it gets highly, highly overrated. In general, you might have 1 to 2 games difference over a 3-week period, which is not that big of a deal. And when trying to account for things like rests or injuries, it screws that up. Trades can screw it up. And because I try not to, but a lot of people put so much focus on it that it ends up taking away from the overall strength of their team. They move away from a properly constructed team into one that just bulk buys playoff schedules. And I think it does a lot of harm in a lot of the time. We're so far away from it that, that it can cause problems. How trash are Tatum's new shoes? I saw them released today. I do not like them. Maybe they'll grow on me. I do not like them. Is Aaron Gordon an all-star? I haven't done my teams yet. I would be pretty doubtful of that, though. Is Giannis a better points league player compared to categories? This season, yes. In the past, I'd say it would have been equivalent. This season, yes. I don't do NBA player props. Not really. I don't really dedicate a huge amount of time to trying to find. Part of the issue with player props is trying to find what the lines are actually set at, and then trying to balance that back to my projections to find which guy looks like it really stands out there. So no, as a general rule, no, I don't do player props. Is Tyler Hero a better player than DeJounte Murray? I don't think so. I think Hero's defensive deficiencies are pretty significant. Jordan says, Vassell, Cam Johnson, or Olynyk, who would you drop? Probably Vassell. I just think that it's so far away from him returning. It's probably Vassell. As much as I think he's the best player there, he's just too far away. What team can I see making a trade first before the trade deadline? It's a good question. I don't know how to look at that. Let's say it's... Who do I think will make a trade first? I don't know. I don't know how to even judge that. I'm going to say the Raptors. But I don't know who, of course. Would I consider Vassell a drop even if you're in first place? You have 4 to 5 IL eligible players. Assuming 5 that these IL eligible players are only really short term, then you can afford a loss if you're in first place. I probably wouldn't in that scenario. How many hours a day do I spend on fantasy? Like, too much, man. Like 12, 10, 11. A lot, man. Do I watch EuroLeague games? No. Do I follow the NBL? No. I don't really have time for it. When to pick up John Isaac? Maybe next season. I'm not interested in him this season. I could end up being wrong on that, but I don't really think it's going to be the case. Who'll be the first coach to go? Second, you mean? Who'll be the second coach to go? Because Steve Nash has already gone. I made this mistake myself a few weeks ago. I think it's probably going... I think it's probably going to be... Well, actually, I don't know. I say it's Silas, but I don't think they're going to fire him. It's Casey, but they're not going to fire him. Maybe it's Unseld? I don't know. Yeah, the Suns making the trade could be interesting. Zach Collins or Rocco worth a fly? I like Zach Collins more than Covington. Jalen Williams or Quentin Grimes? Both. I think they're both like so close to each other in terms of value. It's really close. I would lean Grimes for minutes. Does spending that much time on fantasy affect your love for it? I don't know if it affects my love for it. I love doing the work. It makes me focus more on doing the work versus narrowly focusing on my teams. Like, my priority is doing work versus spending 2 hours negotiating a trade in a league. Like, I don't do that anymore. Or really planning out aggressive waiver strategies in those leagues because I'm trying to do that for so many other situations. So I'd say that's probably it. Oh, no, Nate McMillan. That's a good call for first coach fired. What's my realistic time frame for Davis and Towns? I'd say both of them, looking at probably start of February, end of January. Who'll be most improved next season as a rookie? That's a good question. Jabari Smith looked pretty bad, so maybe it's him. Well, the other one I look at is Ivy, because guards struggle so often in their rookie season, and they often take a big step forward. They don't always. So maybe that one. Maybe it's Ivy. You reckon Kid's going to get fired? I don't really see it. I don't see it. What is Walker Kessler's long-term upside in a category league? Top 50, top 24? Yeah, I think top 24 is probably pushing it. Like what Claxton's doing now, which is not far from top 24. So like what Claxton's doing now, maybe? How do I remove my bias in players when evaluating? I don't think I can. Like, I have some bias associated with it, but most of my bias is associated by looking at the players' numbers and looking at what they've done in the past. And like, am I biased against Dylan Brooks, or does all of the stats show the same thing, that he's an inefficient chucker who's not worth it for fantasy? Like, is that me being biased? I don't know that it is. So I don't know if I have irrational biases towards players, because basically everything that I talk about in terms of the fantasy evaluation of them is based on the numbers of what they've done in the past, what they can do now, and how I've projected them out. So it is, I'm sure I do have biases, but I don't really know how I could remove those. But anyway, that will do it for the show today. Thanks everyone for being a part of everything. Give it a thumbs up on the way out. Subscribe as well. Hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys next time.